So, the new Avengers game. I'm here to talk to you today about that, but I'm not excited at all. So let's talk about it, and here's my quick take. So everyone loves the Avengers, right? What's not to love? You got Piccolo, Tin Man, Captain Boy Scout, Pikachu, Lord Farquaad. You guys know the characters by now. I'm not going to be discussing the fact that this game has been delayed yet again, nor will I be discussing the ugly character models that they changed, or the fact that when they delayed it, they immediately asked for people to pay money for a pre-order. What I do want to talk about is why I'm personally not excited for this game at all. So let's break this down character by character. Just on a side note, comparisons will be made to other games that have nothing to do with the Avengers, but the comparisons are relevant and they'll make sense, and you'll see why. Before we get into the characters, I just want to outline something. It is my belief that in a game like this, a character's combat should be as unique as the character itself. You should be able to pick a certain character, and they should be able to play differently from anyone else on the roster. This is kind of my unwritten expectation. As a character has different moves, they have different characteristics, they have different tools at their disposals, they have different fighting styles. Also, given the fact that we've seen pretty much all of these characters act and move in particular ways in other form factors like games, movies, shows, and comics, there is already a basic understanding and standard that we, the viewer or the player, expect and hold to each character. It's a basic knowledge of how they should move. But this is where the game gets it wrong. So we'll start with Thor. Thor is a mix between ranged weapon attacks and also kind of like a tank. A superior comparison to Thor's fighting style in this game would be Kratos in God of War PS4. The hammers act the same, or the hammer and the axe act the same. It attaches itself to the environment until you call it back. The combat in God of War feels incredibly satisfying through its sound and game design. The hits have a visceral and weighty impact, and you can feel the strength when Kratos uses his axe. It's all very cool and makes you feel really badass. However, look at this. This is the god of thunder, a literal god. This combat is so generic and is not satisfying at all. It takes this god of thunder 4 hits with a Mjolnir for one guy. Again, the god of thunder. Do you feel like a god of thunder? This is the guy who has gone head to head with the Hulk, and now it takes him 4 hits to take out a generic human. He's completely nerfed. And yes, I know there are skill trees in this game, however I will address those at a later point in the video. Let's move on to Cap. I'm actually okay with Cap in his combat. It feels very natural and organic to his actual character traits and his military training. He fights very naturally and as you would expect and as you would imagine. So look, they did a pretty good job on Cap. I'm pretty happy with him. I wouldn't expect too much else from him. Throws his shield as a ranged weapon and he's good at hand-to-hand tactical combat. So they did an alright job with Cap. Black Widow. All her fighting scenes that we've seen so far in the trailers are QTEs or quick time events and cutscenes. Anything that is cool is played out through a QTE or a cutscene. All changes in level locations or altitudes have all occurred through cutscenes. It's almost as if the game itself is controlling where you go and where the fight happens. It completely removes the freedom from the player and it makes it feel incredibly restrictive. Instead of taking Taskmaster out the way that you want, you can only take him out the way the game wants you to. There is no control or say. There's no need to strategize as a character like Black Widow actually would strategize. And while we're on it, Taskmaster is just cringe. But my biggest issues here lie with Hulk and Iron Man. We've seen the Hulk, the big boy Hulk himself. We've seen him run fast in movies, comics, and past games. We've seen him jump and scale buildings, and there's a whole game based around this in Ultimate Destruction. We know what his speed is capable of. We know how he moves. We have a general idea as to his mobility and what it should be like. Based on past media, there is an expectation surrounding the Hulk and how he should move. In this game, but this is not the Hulk. I understand they want him to be the slow tank class, but Jesus, he has to do parkour just to cross a bridge. He should be able to completely clear this section in one jump. His jump height is incredibly restrictive and his movements are really way too slow. It's way too slow to even be practical in battle. He feels extremely heavy and immobile. And yes, I understand the Hulk is heavy, but he should not be immobile. You want to see how slow he actually is. Look at this. There is no danger for the Hulk to ever get hit by a missile because he's that slow. The missile has time to be shot, travel its path, hit the ground, well before the Hulk even gets within its range. Lastly, we speak of Iron Man. And speaking of slow, look at how they butchered him, man. Flying as Iron Man should have been the most amazing thing to experience in a AAA game. Until you see this. His flying sequences are on rails. It's like Star Fox but with Iron Man, and it's not even as good. The crosshairs don't even move from the center of the screen. You can't even aim properly from the footage we've seen. You have to slowly move Iron Man up and around the screen in order for him to aim when he's flying. I mean, look at this. He can't even reach the guy until he slowly pans over and gets the guy into the center of the screen where his crosshairs is. Now, we've seen Iron Man move quickly before in movies, comics, and shows. So being familiar with his abilities, then looking at this game, it creates a huge disconnect to what he should be like versus what we're getting. Again, I know there are skill trees. There is a huge disconnect between gameplay and cutscene footage. Look at how slow and controlled this gameplay is. Then, look at the cutscene. See how much quicker he moves in the cutscene? He was far more agile in the cutscene, which only makes the gameplay look far worse in comparison. Why can't he move this quick in the gameplay? Why are you showing us how quick he can move in a cutscene, but then giving us Snail Iron Man in the gameplay? Why would you have Iron Man, someone who could fly anywhere at great speeds, be locked onto rails? It completely does not fit with the character traits at all. An example of decent mechanics that he should have had this based off his Anthem. And yes, I know this game is not the best, but the flying is fun and is very, very similar to what Iron Man should control like. It's fluid and transitioning between being grounded and flying is easy and it looks good. This Avengers game says, oh, you want to fly? Okay. I'm going to control the speed and the elevation. Do you think you'll be able to manage to aim? Can you manage that, baby boy? For a character that can also go at any altitude, he seems overly restricted to this bridge. I understand this isn't an open world game, but your gameplay shouldn't be totally restricted to the small portion of the bridge when in other cutscenes it shows Iron Man flying around under it. Why would you show this in a cutscene and not give the player the choice to do this themselves? Again, skill trees, I know, but he is so slow even for a level 1 of what Iron Man would be. Also, with that argument with the skill trees, are you saying that you need to punish the player with slow and generic gameplay for an extended amount of time until they level him up enough where he plays like he should? That's weak. That is so weak. So many comments in the trailer for this game all mention how slow, especially Iron Man and Hulk look and feel. So the game acts like it wants to be a AAA release, on the same levels as, let's say, the Arkham games or Spider-Man PS4. Yet it offers the same simplicity and repetitive gameplay from the Ultimate Alliance games. I do like the Ultimate Alliance games, but the difference is that they know what they want to be. They know they're not trying to be a AAA game. This game presents itself as more than what it is, and in doing so, it tells the viewer that this game, at least based on what we've only seen so far, is deemed to fall flat. No one is going to want to play through the multitude of online missions with friends and the supposed years of updated content that they're going to give us if a character controls like crap. The game would be a chore to play. How many times have you picked up Spider-Man PS4 just to swing around and feel like Spider-Man? This should invoke the same feeling when you're picking up characters in this game. Characters shouldn't be so restrictive or so far away from how they should move. This whole game, from what we've seen so far, is wildly restrictive, and from the looks of it, it's incredibly linear. One of my biggest fears for this game is that they're going to nerf the really mobile and strong characters so the weaker, less capable characters don't feel so left behind by comparison. It's the only explanation I could think of as to why they put Iron Man on rails or made Hulk move like a snail. It's in the name of balancing, but this benefits no one. It completely diminishes the experience and takes away from the overall fun of the game. I want to play the Hulk to feel like I'm playing the Hulk. I don't want to play the Hulk to feel like I'm controlling a truck with flat tires. I want to play Iron Man to zip around the skies and use my arsenal of weaponry. I don't want to enter a long and boring rail shootout scene where the control has been completely taken away from me. These characters do not play as they should for the most part. Now, I know in the comments they will say things like, this video is useless because I haven't seen enough of the game or I haven't even played it, or that things will be fixed in the skill tree. And I somewhat agree, but I'm forming a premature opinion based on what has been presented to me, which is the tutorial level. However, this is what the game developers have decided to feed potential customers. The point of a trailer is meant to generate hype and to show off the game and make sure you're putting its best foot forward. This is what you're showing potential consumers, and this is what consumers will be basing their opinion on. Is this meant to be the best that this game has to offer? Seriously. The combat again does not look satisfying in any way. Think of any other superhero game like Spider-Man PS4, the Arkham games, then look at this. There's no depth, there's no rewards, it's a classic 1, 2, 3 hit and is not satisfying at all. And get this is considered the improved combat. It was actually worsened. Look at this clip.
Yeah, it's been delightful for us because Vince Napoli, who's our lead combat designer, had come from the God of War team, and so having Vince be able to show up, look at our heroes, and we were doing what we were doing, making Iron Man, making Cap, making Hulk, and then Vince showed up and was like, okay, give me the hardest one. So we gave him one like we hadn't really developed yet. Said, try this out, see what you guys can do. And then when he and his team, this player enemy traversal team that we have, the pet team, when they actually did what they did with Widow, we're like, holy shit, this is much better. Okay, redo these guys now. And so Vince just started taking each character and getting down to the core of who are they? What makes them cool? What is that attribute? Whether it's a hammer that maybe throws a lot like a Kratos axe and can come back to you, all the way to Iron Man being able to fly with repulsors and then other unlocks you have for his gear. That team has just nailed it as far as saying this is what these heroes, this playing that fantasy of being these heroes.
Just on the gameplay as well, we only ever see the same tutorial level at the A-Day bridge situation. Yes, we've seen a little bit with Ms. Marvel, but that's not really that much. Every single time there's a trailer, it's usually at the A-Day. We've seen it and it's repetitive, and one of the biggest features of this game is online co-op gameplay. However, we've yet to see how this works at all. When you constantly release videos and news about your game, but it's the same scene every single time, it doesn't show off the core mechanics of your game. It makes the player worried. To me, it conveys a message that they either aren't confident in the rest of the game, so you don't want to show it off, or it's completely unfinished. And more recently, what we're meant to be excited about, as I said before, is Ms. Marvel is in the game, and will supposedly be the main character that the story revolves around. And her combat just looks exactly the same. It's just very generic, unsatisfying. Like, I'm a Marvel fan, but I don't know why they're hedging their bets on Ms. Marvel to be the frontrunner of this entire game. Is this meant to compel me more to buy the game? No, it's not. Everything just seems so half-assed and generic. And if I could summarize what I've seen so far in this game, that would be the word. It's generic. So in a day and age where the quality of games have reached such a high standards, where good superhero games are great, and if done well, they are amazing, it makes this kind of gameplay so jarring in comparison. There is a huge disconnect between what we expect the characters to move like based on other mediums that we've seen versus what their actual movements are like in this game. Players have an expectation as to how these characters should move and feel, and from what has been shown off so far, it's all wrong. It's painfully obvious a disconnect between how the characters should move versus what their movements actually are, and this has me worried for the game. So with the sloppy, uninteresting combat, the nerfed characters, and severely limiting the player's explorations and movements, this is why I'm just not excited for the game at all. For a superhero game, especially with how high the bar is set now after the really good ones we've been getting lately, it really can do a lot better. So let me know what your thoughts are below. Do hit like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what character you want to see introduced into the game. Let me know if you like these kind of videos. I did like making this, and I'm more than happy to make more. So thank you again for watching if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next one.